The other reason I say that is, there are people that are hungry for the next bit of information that somebody has to offer about Telos and the Lemurians and Inner Earth.
Hmm.
And every
Yeah.
time we have an opportunity to share that with others, they're just waiting to hear what the next thing is. I'm one of them. Look, I'm here to help kind of gather the tribe. And I want to know if there's any new
Yeah.
information. I get it's not frustrated. I just shake my head at the people that want to continue to go back and refer to books that were written in 2004, and that's
Yeah.
kind of their manual. I've
Yeah.
said it. I said it once to early on. There was a Facebook group that was Telos related, Shasta related. And so I was there for a while and I'd listen. And, this poor guy, bless his heart, would continue to talk about Aurelia Louise Jones. Not that what she offered us
Right.
wasn't relevant, but when you keep talking about that, I pointed out, you know, that was 20 years ago almost.
Right.
I gotta suspect that something's changed since then, and really, I
I
think
A
that's what
lot
we
has
should be
changed.
talking about.
A
Yes.
lot's changed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
all of a sudden, I was no longer in the group.
Not surprising.
No, it's okay. Like I said, everybody's got their own journey, and they got to go about it in their way. When
Yeah.
our paths, connect, um, that it's there for a purpose. It's never coincidental. But it's not up for me to say what's going on with you is right or wrong or indifferent. I just like to share this information, and I always like to hear from the other person first, which I'm going to stop talking a moment and let you do that.
Mhm.
Because when I do that, here's where I find the synchronicities between your journey and mine. When I'm trying to spew, the things that I want to talk about, I don't get an opportunity to do that. So here's your shot, my friend. So tell me a
Oh.
little bit about your journey, just brief enough so that the
Ye-
rest of this is kind of in context. And then I want to deal with the things that you reached out to me for.
Sure, yeah. I'm happy to share anything I can. I mean, I've a plethora of information, so it's kind of even to say like where to start, and I'm sure you totally get that. It's like how do you even
This shit's
cover,
been
you
going
know?
on for 4 years with
Yeah.
me. And so, when people, and it was a building of information that went along. So really, for people to understand how I came to the conclusions I came to, you got to go back to the beginning and understand that first. You got to understand
Oh, yeah.
cosmic, effects that we're going through. You have to understand your body and how it's really an electromagnetic thing. And really, if you
Oh,
haven't
yeah.
had any interest in reincarnation, then it really doesn't serve us to go any further with this conversation.
Yeah. So I can all right, let me start from the very beginning. So I've always been like surrounded by like a lot of spirit and everything, if you want to call it that. My mother's very holistic and follows these teachings. And about 2020, which I think is when stuff happened for you, my mom knows, was convening with a community of really talented beings, you know, the channelers and stuff. And this leader of this group, she channels Archangel Raphael. And by doing so, she's able to bring through, she's been doing it for well over 20, 30 years, maybe 25 years, something along those lines. Something around the 80s, so 30, I guess. Um, because there's a certain shift that happened during that time and it has a name for it, but I forget off the top of my head. And my mother, I was really going through it through, and I have crystal children friends and stuff that, all across the board. And, I even have, because everybody likes to talk about the light a lot, and I get it. But there is like the polarity of there is a lower density versions of things. It's not to say it's good or bad, it's to honor all of it, but it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And even my aunt, she actually tends to, I don't like using the word, but tends to do things like exorcisms and things like that, but like on actual entities and stuff. And that, I've seen some crazy stuff with that, and I don't get involved in that. But, I've been exposed to all of the colors, if you will, the wide range, everything across the board. And I was really going through the dark night of my soul type of thing. I mean, it was bad. And I was just like laying down one day, and my mom was just like, come on, like, you need to go do this. Because this woman, the, she was bringing forth Raphael. And, like when we talk about archangels, I think a lot of people look at them as a singular being, and that's not necessarily it. It's a collective, of array, and they're pillars of light, the archangels. And this woman was bringing through Raphael, and I had no idea about Telos. I had no idea about Adama. I had no idea about any of these things. And it was all new to me, which was strange for me because I've known, so many people like across the board and stuff, but it was brand new to me. And I was told to lay down and to kind of just let it be. And I was told that like light codes are going to be put into me to reinstall like into me, from like ancient times essentially. I said, okay, there wasn't like any question about it, but I didn't think that, I think we all like to call it that climactic moment, that movie moment, it's always like unexpected. And they started doing I want to say reinstalling of the remembrance of certain things within me. And the next thing I know, my body started convulsing, and I started doing light language. I had no idea what light language was. And the next thing I know, I'm doing it, and I'm doing it like with my hands. I'm doing all the symbols, and it was like, and it went on for about 2 hours. And after that, I don't think I even like really re-entered my body for like 3 days. But when we had done that, they said, okay, we're gonna do this again this week, and reinstall more. And when we did, Adama was channeled through. And it was a certain group of us that, they talked about how he had to come forth. And I don't know if Saint Germain actually came along during this, like with like Raphael. But Adam was being channeled through, and he said, in order for you to be welcomed into Telos even astrally, we have to do certain preliminary work for you to get in. And they started reinstalling that in me. And that was very loopy, and that was very trippy, to say the least. I'm sure you can imagine. And it was interesting because when it actually happened, there was I don't know if you remember, but it was like it was during 2020, I believe. And going into 2021, there was a fire that happened at Shasta.
That was 2021. Yeah.
Yeah. And they said during it that they weren't upset about they were calling it actually like a cleansing.
That's exactly what I'm glad to hear you refer to it as that, because that's exactly what it was. And
Yeah.
I don't want to interrupt because you're on a roll,
Yeah, go ahead.
but I was talking about that earlier today. That year that I had returned was when the fires had broke out. And so lots of the places in the mountain, especially the ones I wanted to go to, were inaccessible.
Okay.
There were, when you drove around, you could see where the fire had, burned things out, especially on the road just north of there. I would go up to Weed, and you could see where, everything had been burned out. The next year when I went back, you should have seen how beautiful the wildflowers were that came back. So in my mind, we're not done with these catastrophes yet.
Yeah.
This is just its results of all the solar influence that's coming at us. And, that electromagnetic energy is affecting the earth too. So her body is shifting. These earthquakes and tsunamis and hurricanes and fires are all reminiscent of that. And it's a cleansing process.
Yeah.
So, when I see these terrible things happening, I have to kind of step back, put that in perspective, and remind myself, look, it's not that humanity were really good stewards while we were here, because we really didn't respect the earth the way that we should have. But we're just 8 billion little critters crawling around on the planet. And we're here for what, 80 to 100 years in this little carbon avatar ride around in. Our impact while we're here is going to be minimal, but we're still humans, and we were here to learn duality, lessons
Right.
in this physical realm, and we're done learning those lessons. Earth is done with her third dimensional thing, and she's about to cast off that third dimensional veil that she's been in for a while,
Yeah.
and we're like this far from that playing itself out. So all the things that I talk about are motivated to help others just acclimate themselves to what is going on, and then how is that going to affect me. Lots of people think, oh, when that catastrophe goes, we're all done. Well, yes, we are in that form. But those things that you're talking about, that influence that you're getting that felt so physical, that light that's coming our way, pal, is affecting every
Oh,
sentient
yeah.
being, and it has
Yeah.
stored itself inside of us. What it's storing is what's going to be necessary for when the shift takes place. Versus in her new realm of consciousness, your body is no longer this. You are going
Oh,
to
no,
become
it's not.
crystalline in that form, and what you
Yeah.
need is already inside of you. Some of those other downloads that you're getting are packages that are helping you hold greater light, because that's what's coming at us from the sun. Humanity has lived on what I learned was called half orientric light. We'd been able to live on the surface, and with that energy coming at us, that's what we got used to. And so we
Yeah.
vibrated at the same level of Earth. Well, Earth doesn't even vibrate at that same level right now if you watch the Schumann resonance, and what happens
Oh,
when it
yeah.
spikes.
Absolutely.
We're going through the same thing, and our bodies are just getting ready for it. So those
Yeah.
upgrades are to help us with that enhanced light that's coming our way. We weren't designed to be able to handle it, but we're getting upgrades that allow us to. So those things that you're feeling and sensing, that's what it is.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, because I've been to like because I was gonna get into like further, like through telling you stuff and everything, but when it's with, meeting this like community and stuff that I became a part of, and all these talented people, excuse me, I have an Endara crystal, and it just like keeps on, it's like torch, because I can literally like telepathically like hear it, and just like I want to be right here next to the phone, but I literally, somebody just sent it to me the other day, and its name is Venus, and it's just torching the lights out of me. Um,
Well,
but
they're not your typical crystal, that.
oh
Those
no.
things hold consciousness. And
Hmm.
when you hold them, it's an exchange. Yes, it
Yeah.
has information that it'll unlock for you, but oh, you're going to leave your imprint behind on her as well, because sooner or later, you steward them. We really don't own those crystals. We just steward them for a while until they move on. When you think of how long that stone, that crystal has been here on the planet, long before you ever got your hands on it, it's amazing to me. And then keep in mind that every Andara crystal is gridded here so it connects to all of its brothers and sisters on the planet.
Yeah. Yeah, and this one's really again, it came through like channeled. Its name is Venus for inner beauty. And somebody sent it to me out of the blue just the other day. I literally got it in the mail, and I was just like, okay. And since then it's like I need to go everywhere with you. And I'm just like,
Yes.
all right. Like I was like eating dinner, and I thought it wanted to catch the sun for a little bit. And I said, catch the sun, do your thing. And then I got like it was just like I need to come inside and I need to sit with you. And I was like, really? Like right now? Like why I eat? Okay. um Interesting. I'm like, aren't you supposed to be inner beauty, not bossy? But it is what it is. Um,
Yeah, they're insistent.
yeah, very insistent. I'm like, it's not like I have crystals everywhere. And this one is just, it's like you said, it's on a different level. And I'm like,
Yes.
it's like a baby. It's like I'm coming everywhere
Yeah.
with you.
I'm not taking anything away from any other crystal because I, like you, I've been attracted to
Oh yeah.
stones and crystals all my life, and I understand um, what quartz is designed for, and citrine, and you name it. They're all meant to help us elevate an intent, and they can take that and amplify it on our behalf. Andaras
Yeah.
are different than that because they're like holding a
Yes.
little Akashic record library in your hand that's connected to everything else ethereally. They're amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you feel the energy, like when holding this one's a pretty wild one. I've seen some wild ones too, but this one's really got, you know,
Yeah.
you can feel it big time. But yeah, excuse me for getting off track.
No, I
Um,
did that.
um, but so with Raphael and everything, I started going through this journey, like with this group of people and this leader and stuff. And Raphael brought through, I believe we've been doing it for over a year. So since last year, last spring, it would be. Um, pro right before last spring, we had gone through a lot of activations, like transmissions, to really release a lot of like the baggage and energies of like uh Atlantis and Lemuria lives and everything like that, the residual effects and everything, and even ancient Egypt and all that fun stuff that's not really that fun. Um and then we brought through Merlin for a little bit, and that was really interesting, which I would love to get into because that's where things kind of get crazy for me. Um, but we brought through Merlin and we did a lot with that. And I remember I was like, I literally was sitting one day, Merlin was just like, okay, well, you need to take an orange and you need to like put your hand in dirt and you need to like put yourself in a circle and like all these things. It's like now you need to like move it with your mind. You need to become one with these things. I was like really going like heavily into it. It wasn't just like all like rainbows and unicorns in the sense it was just like so easy. It's very much about, and what I learned like with Merlin, and I'm sure as you know, Merlin resides in the energies of Telos and stuff. And uh he's very like he like really pesters you. He's like, I need you to do this if you're gonna be my student, which is quite funny, if anything. I find it hilarious, if anything, when he's channeled through, and it's a really fun energy to work with. Um, but once we did that and I kind of moved through that, Raphael had brought through, and this is like where it gets really important, connecting with uh Adama and Saint Germain and stuff. And they brought forth saying that there was for your rainbow body 33 codes um that needs to be assimilated through this like process that we're going through energetically, that they like have like written somewhere. I don't quite understand if they even said it like it's like in their in the city or what, but they like it's like they love it so much they've even done like some art about it and everything, of like the new earth and like what these codes like represent. And you have to simulate them through like shedding old processes and integrating the new. And um in it for the 33 codes, and in this community there's well over 1,200 people. um but and this is like where it gets interesting, and she was even talking about today like this leader who is able to channel Raphael through and all these other beings, and she's quite phenomenal, and I can show you like off of this and stuff and everything. She was even talking today about being on like Gaia TV or something of that nature, wanting to bring it out because they really wanted to go out to a certain, pod of like 144,000. Because how Raphael always talks about is, there's about a billion star seeds or so and counting now with the new children coming through. And, there is the 144 that come here with no karma, no past lives or anything like that, karmically. But then there's a bunch of different pods that make up like the billion. And there's 144,000, they come in these pods, if you will, to make up this like billion, this like populace that is of the star seed essence. And really has been saying like it's about time that much more people have that like get this like information. It's really time now. And out of these 33 codes, there were certain people that could actually hold the energy for each code. So each person would hold the actual, because of their soul and the contracts they've made, they could hold these energies, these frequencies for the masses, like in their pods and stuff like that. And I actually was able to be like not become one out of like doing something. I am one. Raphael like had signaled it that I am one. And my code actually, and I was shocked by this because I even said, like, I was like playing around one day. I was like, of course I would have to get this one. Like, why couldn't it be something more like, cute or like fun? And they were like, your forgiveness. You hold the code of like forgiveness, the light code of like the pillar of that for people. Because a lot, like when you're around people, you're able to activate that in them on a accelerated level to freedom of what they believe, that illusion of needing to forgive something, because that's really what it is, isn't it? It's an illusion of shame and guilt. It's that resonance that we hold of shame and guilt. And I got that and I was like, why did I have to get that one? Which is like quite funny, like saying that, because like couldn't I have
Well,
gotten like,
let me, not to get you off track again,
yeah,
but in my opinion, forgiveness is one of the most important things people need to understand.
of course.
It's to me, I take it for granted because it's part of who I am, but I see myself connected to everybody else. Color,
Yeah,
culture, gender, none of that makes any difference because I know how I'm connected to everybody else on a soul level. We're just
right.
riding around in this freaking avatar. And when we start to compare ourselves to others, there's no benefit to that. Pay attention to your own flame and square that away, and all the rest of it will fall into place. Um, that's more important. But I'm thrilled to hear that forgiveness was assigned to you, if that's what it was.
Yeah,
It's
and
very important.
it is. And, because there's so many things you could say about it, as you know, because again, it's so hard to even really pick a focal point of where to even talk about stuff, as you know. And, even like when like Yeshua has been channeled through, or even Mary Magdalene, hearing her story, it's quite amazing. There are recordings of that like I can show you her story, on like greater detail and stuff like that, because I think it's always wonderful to hear those things, and Mary and stuff. And because they're just great masters, is what they are. And
Yes.
when Jesus has been brought through for like, because we had integrated at one point, simulated one of the codes being Christ consciousness. It was around Christmas time, this past Christmas. And they were talking about, because Jesus was saying there's four pillars, like all the rest come in, but the four pillars, if you will, is love, gratitude, forgiveness, surrender, being the fourth, but it's really the three, but then surrendering to them. And then everything else comes into play. And that was really interesting to hear, because again, I was like, I think just being like human, I guess, I was just like, I wish I got a fun one, because there's some really cool ones that are coming up. I mean, there's, we've worked with the Lemurian dolphin whale template recently, and actual travel to Telos, and that was phenomenal. But we did do forgiveness, and it was funny because it kept on getting pushed back because it was so high energy, like that it was like, well, no one's ready yet. Every single time it was supposed to come through, it's like, no, we kind of have to prolong if people aren't quite ready.
Yeah, look
And
how long it took you to get acclimated to that
do it.
energy and
Yeah.
sort it out. And I always see that first phase is here's where you need to begin. And it's a little strange. We're not used to any of this information because it wasn't anything we knew. We weren't trained. No one told us about it along the way. But nonetheless, it's there. And you know it's a truth and you can't get past that. Once you get that foundation set, oh, now you're ready for it to
Yeah.
just give you greater awareness of what you already know. That whole stuff that's coming out of you. When he said you were one of them, it's exactly right. You have stored
Yeah.
this stuff away, and it's time for you to have a command of it again. So whether you pass it along to others, whether you teach others with it, whatever it is that you do, that it's meant for you to do that with. And now is the reason why all of these things are being manifested the way they are, because Earth is ready to shift in her own new space. And every effort to get our attention is being used right now. Every ethereal 2x4 upside the head is helping us get ready for what's to come.
Yeah. Yeah. And it did take me obviously time to assimilate. And it was interesting because I even said to people, because we're recognized for it in this community of who actually holds the light codes, because there's a lot of people in there. It's like, well, who's holding it, you know? And I remember everybody kept on being like, like the people that I knew personally in our community and everything, they would like make jokes being like, I guess you're just not ready because we haven't started it each time we think that we're going to do it. And we did do it recently, but it was interesting because originally when we were supposed to astral travel and like work with certain beings, you're supposed to work with for a long time Isis, Thoth, and go back into ancient Egypt for the and we're gonna work with like Queen Yen and stuff too. And Mother Mary about this for, to free yourself, like, with the idea of like shackles around you and stuff, and like going into the temples and really freeing yourself of those things. And I just kept on saying, because I have such a strong, like, even before the reason why I'm asking these questions, like why I came to you to begin with for the questions that I have, um, I like had a really strong affinity for, connecting to Telos after I got, you know, um, I guess, reintroduced and the remembrance of it. And I just kept on saying, I really don't. And I wasn't saying to anybody. The only person I was saying it to was like my mother. I was just like, I really don't want to do, ancient Egypt for astral travel or anything because it's so heavy there and forgiveness is already so heavy. It's like, I would really like to do it actually like in Telos. And I really sat down and I meditated on it for a little bit, for like a few days. And I kept on saying to like Adam and stuff, like the Telosian community, I was like, I would rather us do it here if like you were open to it. And I didn't tell anybody because I said, what will happen. And my leader's good enough where she'll know, the direction it'll take when it's channeled through. And obviously, what you will find out, like, in a little bit, I am obviously a musician. I am an artist. I am an actress. Um, but first and foremost, I am a musician and I am a performer. And it it was so funny though because the day that it came to like start doing this, because it's about a few weeks each process. Sometimes it's a while. Some of them last over a month. Just doing it. Because we really bring in the balance of the divine feminine and masculine. Both aspects of like moving through it. And when she started to channel it, it was so funny because the people that do know me in the community were like, of course this would happen. Like this makes more sense. Um, Dama came straight through and said, we will be doing it here. Like there's been the request that we're doing it here instead, actually, for forgiveness. And it was very interesting because they brought us into the temples of their theater temples. And where all the music is and everything. And they brought a lot of the great masters through, like the Buddha, Kuan Yin, Mary Magdalene, Kali and Segment, um, anybody that you could think of for a lot of things, you name it, you could in your third eye when astral traveling, they were there, of course. And in attendance, they had us act out the scenes that really um, and that tore us up. What were the trigger points? Like tell your story. What is it? And they were like, and they were dramatic about it. They were like, make it really good. We want to see it all. We want to see everything. We want to see everything that happened that had that has created this illusion of needing forgiveness. And it was a really beautiful process because during that, they even started integrating the energy of like the whales and the dolphins to bring a lightheartedness to it. Because they were both codes were interconnecting, if you will. It was very important that there was like a blend of that. Um, and I remember everybody's like the people that I know saying, of course, like it would be you would end up we would end up doing like, this, simulating this code actually through um, Telos and all these things and everything. But everybody found it so funny because it was the first time actually we were invited into the theater, that area, if you will, and to do these things. And everybody was just like, well, of course, because like, look at who it is that you are. And that was quite you know, it kind of made that fun for me when, like I said, it was hard for me even. Um, I'm proud of it now. I'm proud that I get to hold this for people, if you will. But like I said, it's still to me, it's like as important it is, and it is the pillar, especially like in, for instance, which I'm very sure that I am discourses, um, with like, Godfrey and, Saint Germain and everything like that, talking about, the I am and everything, and like always calling on the act of forgiveness, the pillar of forgiveness and stuff. Um, it was very interesting because, I understand the importance as we were speaking about it, but I was happy to see that it brought such like a lightheartedness, with the musicality aspect and like the acting aspect and everything. Because I'm sure like when you actually travel and everything, it's so intense, it feels very, very real. There's no mistaking it. Um, and so we did do that recently. Um, and now we are moving into a lot of energy that has to do yet again with Merlin. Um, and it's a code that it's about really vibrational magic is really what it has to do with. That's what it has to do with. And what was I going to say? It was important what I was going to say, but I just blanked.
It'll come back.
Um, it'll come back. Yeah. Oh, so I have these personal channelings because I am one of this my leader, if you will. Um, she doesn't she doesn't do personal channelings for people because it's so much to integrate. It's so much energy, like vibrationally having to do that when you're actually pulling through something, as you know. And but she does do it for us at the masters to hold the light codes. Um, and obviously me being one of them. And this is like where it gets really interesting because me and Raphael have been talking a lot recently. And and actually, a lot of me is doing a lot of work with like Merlin and stuff, and these energies and frequency and music. And I was told that I'm only allowed to say so much about it, but I believe I can tell you a lot of it. I'm supposed to musically do something on a different level that hasn't been done, not in this lifetime, not, in a very long time at least, where I'm supposed to be bringing forth frequent, like notes basically that haven't been heard in a long time, new notes, and different actual frequencies. And I need to essentially learn how to bring that forth through my channel because it has to happen that way, and it will be in a way that's completely unexpected. And it's for the masses. It's obviously not for me, but I'm supposed to, this is a part of my mission because I made a contract vibrationally with music. And it's funny because I tried to get away from it for a while because, I used to, before the pandemic, it was a pandemic that, I came home for a little bit. I was in New York City and, I lived the entire New York City life and, went to TV school and um, I come from a background of like musicians that are so good that they're people don't have words for them, And I kind of, when I was going through everything and I was just like, everything's like over, you know, there's no point. I don't like Philadelphia. I don't want to be here. And it was all these things, and I just couldn't find like love and like I music didn't have the same ring to me. And that's my one true love, if you will. I think our souls resonate on certain levels, with what really sings to the soul itself, its signature.
Well,
And
how pure a
music
frequency
was
is
always been.
music?
It's everything. It's literally everything.
Exactly. Right.
And I just like couldn't find like it became so mundane and boring, on all levels, listening to it, playing it. And I'm a writer, I write music, and I really write a lot of orchestral music, actually. And even that, because like I get very bored, to be honest. Not this necessarily important. I get very bored with kind of just regular, and I love all music, so I'm not shaming anything. So I don't want that, it's seeming like that's what I'm saying. But I get very bored with like a 1 3 5 like simple chord progression and just singing. I get very bored with that, even if it's like very well done and I can be like, oh, it's beautiful, and I can definitely give it praise and it being good, but it's not like it's doing anything for me. It's not really giving me that fire or anything. And so, even so, I've always really loved like orchestral based things and doing a lot of that. And I've always like known how to do that since I've been a little kid. I don't even actually remember how to like, I literally don't remember how I even learned how to play. I just always knew how to play music.
Most
Like
musicians
people
are
always like
that
thought,
way. I've been
yeah,
really blessed to
like
be around some people. Prince ended up being a friend of mine I met just out of nowhere.
Prince, Prince, he died on
Yes.
my birthday. He literally
I
died on my
was
birthday.
I grew up in a part of South
Yeah.
Minneapolis and our paths eventually crossed and I was I won't go into the story. My point is that there are just some people that can pick up an instrument and just play it. They just know how to play that. And when I look at
Yeah.
guitar players, oh my God, how do you
Yeah,
know
it's what I am.
where on the neck to put your fingers and play that particular chord? And when I watch him work the neck, he's amazing. How do you do
He's
that?
fire.
You can't teach that to somebody that's either inside of you and it just plays itself out or it doesn't. But the guy can do the same thing with a piano or any other instrument you ask him to
Mhm.
play. There are just some people that they have that in them.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. And he's so talented, I know he's passed on, but absolutely
Oh,
phenomenal
yes.
guitar player. I mean, he just sinks right into it. He just melts straight into that neck. And yeah, that's actually like my main instrument. And I never even like remember how I just did it. Like I just like was just like, I'm just gonna do it. And it was like funny because people would always say like, Samantha, like, why don't you just like, when are you going to learn the guitar and everything? Like your family plays and everything like that. Because I always say, oh, I'm going to be a musician and actress. And I'm like, but you're not playing any music. And that it's like the soul level thing. I said, yeah, I know, but I'll know when I know because I'll be told when I need to do it. And that's actually and nobody understood that. Do you know what I mean? No one understood what I meant, but I did because I was a little kid and I just knew. And one day I was just told it's time. And I just went straight in my room and I already there's always instruments laying around my house because my father was a musician and a very, very good one at that, very well praised. So it's not like I ever had to worry to find an instrument in my house. And I just remember I just like went downstairs, like picked up one of the guitars, brought it to my room, and the next thing I know, I was just playing. And my dad was just like, "Are you like, how did you learn? I didn't teach you that." And I was just like, "Yeah, I mean, like, I guess I just knew." But yeah, I really lost that love that is me, if that makes sense. And I remember talking to Raphael, and Raphael was just like, and I was told this before, to be honest, like I was told this many times before by other, mediums and stuff and everything. I'd be like, yeah, 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 whatever. But Raphael said like, um, no, your soul comes from like a signature of the arts, like of music itself, and you made a contract with it. It has to come out of you. And then of course went into like deeper things, and we've really worked on that. And Raphael had said to me many times, don't this is not meant for other people to know until it happens, because people can't understand it, is the thing. So it would sound too crazy, and it would allow people to interfere with the energies around this and its pureness and like what it's supposed to be, essentially. And it is for the masses, and it's for the greater good of all. And um, with working with the Merlin energy, which really brings that magic and everything too. Raphael's been saying a lot recently, and I also have like another thing that I think you would love to hear this story. That's yeah, I definitely think you would love it. But said, it was 2 weeks ago or a few, maybe 3 weeks ago, said you need to, in order for the synthesization is what they said, because it everything's crystallizing in the holographic field. You need to go to Mount Shasta, you need to go to Telos. And like you actually have to go there like in the physical, like, but for me this actually is not like something where you just go to the mountain and you just experience the mountain. This is for me to actually go inside, because for what I have to do and assimilate, it's going to have to take certain beings to be able to bring forth such um training, if you will, and assimilating that is on such a deep level that it's no longer something that can just be done on an astral level, if that makes sense. And I've been knowing this because I've been having such a strong affinity there that's been growing and growing and feeling so close. And I got to a point where, which is such a funny story, like where I am able to, tap into them and what they're saying, at times. I remember one day I was just like, I was not in the greatest mood. And I was just like, uh, give me like a sign. I was just like, am I going crazy? Like, you need to help me out here. Like, you gotta come forth. You have to give me something because I feel like I'm losing it. And I got like right where I was standing, you know, go up the street like one block and turn to the left because I was on a walk in the evening. And I have my route though. I have like my routine, my walk I like. And I didn't like this street. And I said, well, I don't really want to go down that street. I don't like it. And they were like, just go down the street, Sam, and you'll understand why. And I was just like, all right, I'll go down the street, but I'm not gonna like it. I was kind of a little bit like snippy about it. And I walked down like the street and I got halfway down and just like on the ground was just like $100 just like chilling there. And I like picked it up and no one's around to give it to. And I was just like, oh, okay. I was just like, I understand. Like, thanks for the gift. And I walked. But it was like little things like that, they'll give me things like that. It's like really beautiful, like when I tap in. And 2 months back, I had this because I get really psychically open and not even talking about the Syrian energy that's inside of me that they've like literally installed, which I can talk about, technology inside of me and stuff. Um, I get very psychically open, especially like at nighttime and like with my, third eye and like my astral travels and stuff. And it was interesting though because um I was on the surface of Earth. I wasn't anywhere crazy. And these three beings like came to me and I immediately recognized, when you know who they are. Um but I didn't know who they were. I still don't have the names for them or anything like that. And it was two females and a male, and they were tall, and they were in their 20s, and the one of
Well,
them,
they probably look like they were in their 20s.
well, that's what I was gonna say. They looked like because they were not in their 20s. I am telling you
Hmm.
that right now, not even close. But one of them, like, because I even said, like, I even like looked at her, and I remember saying because it was so vivid. Um, I have a picture that I like because I was just like, I'm not crazy and I wanted to remember it. I have it right here and I'll show it to you.
Okay.
Because I literally seen it on Instagram right after because it showed me it because I had to tell the story first. And then you understand why I had the picture because I was like, I need this. I need to know that I'm not losing it. You know what I mean? Um, and there was the one girl she had, and which is interesting because I would think, with knowing like Adama, Ashley and stuff like and everything. And, a lot of Telosians usually have like lighter hair from what I know and, lighter eyes. And but I could be wrong. But that's just in my experience. And one of them, the one girl is the one that I really talked to. The other two were there and I felt them, like everything about them, you know what I mean? And I knew them, but I talked to this female. And this female, she looked about 22 and she had black hair, like long, dark black hair, crystal blue eyes, most beautiful blue eyes. She was so beautiful. I mean, there was no, it doesn't, I mean, words couldn't even describe it, like how beautiful this girl was. And she was 22. And or she looked it because I remember thinking she looks like younger than me, but she did not act it. And she when she was and she had like regular she had alternative clothes on. It wasn't like Telosian clothes or anything, but this will make sense for going forward. But she did have like a style on stylistically that was more like me, like more alternative, like you know, and like she had jeans on and she had like Vans on or something like Converse, and she was so beautiful. But they were talking to me telepathically at first. And then they started speaking to me. The girl like opened her mouth, like she started to speak. And it was funny though, because when I say this, it was so important because I was really going through it during this time, like a few months ago, 2 months ago. And um, when she was like, she started to speak to me, and she found me really funny, like, because I was like trying to understand like what they were even doing here, because it's like it's you guys, and they were like, yeah, and they thought like, and they found me funny, and I just was like thinking in my head because I knew that they were Telosian, you know, and even it was just I was so confused because it's not like I thought that they would like not have personality. Of course, I know that they would have personality, but their personalities were like I I didn't know if they would like mine. You know what I mean? I didn't realize that they would understand me and like my jokes and the way that I am, if you will. And because I can be quite sarcastic and say the weirdest stuff. I mean, just so off the charts sometimes. And I know it. So I can call myself out on it. So and I was like that in my dream to like save, that small talk, but they were like cracking up at me and it was like so real, but I felt them. And then I remember sitting down though. We sat down on a couch and the male was like to my left, like in front of me, and the other female that I didn't speak to was to the right and like in front of me. But the one female I was speaking to, she was right next to me. And they wanted to talk to me about something important. And as I'm sitting there, I remember thinking, and it was just like an intrusive thought, but it was truly one of my thoughts where I was looking at them and I was just like, they look so beautiful and so perfect. And again, it was just an intrusive thought. And then I just remember like looking, like looking down. I remember seeing like in detail my shoes, my jeans, and everything. And it's an outfit that I have like in real life. And I was just like, they look so perfect. And then there's me. And I just remember thinking, like, how could, like, why am I even in their presence in the sense that, like, and it's not like, again, to reiterate, I understand that we're worthy. I know these teachings, but again, it was an intrusive human thought that I had. And immediately, as I start going kind of like into this spiral, the girl, she just already knew, and it was we were communicating telepathically. She just put her hand on my hand, and I have felt love before. Of course, I have parents' love, romantic love, friend love, family love, you name it. Um, I know what it's like to love, and I love hard. And and even like so like holding for instance like the forgiveness code, I'm like I love and I love hard, I'm like I got this. And um so I really thought that like I understood in the sense, like not that I understood, but I really understood kind of even like the idea of love, and I really get into deep meditations where I can feel that source space of like bliss, if you will, like I fully feel it, at times. um But this was so different because when she put her hand on my hand, this warm wave, because again, I could feel everything. This wasn't just in mind. I could literally feel everything. And I felt this warm wave, like this coating of a blanket going over me. And then this love that was so radiant and unconditional. There isn't like words to put to it. And I just started to feel that in waves. And it was so much that it wasn't even like, like when people say, I felt so loved that it made me cry. This wasn't that. I felt so loved. There was never even a need to cry. Do you know what I mean? That it was so, I was already, she like rose me up in vibration with her so much that there was none of even that. And I was just like, oh, so this is it. This is the love that we're talking about, that we're trying to reach, like with like the Christ consciousness essence. And she pulled me up by my hand and she looked at me in the eyes. And I just voluntarily, it looked like she had a white feather on her eyelash, like a white, like from your pillow or something. And I just like on reflex, not even thinking about it because I was so comfortable in their presence. I went to touch her eyelash. And when I went to do it, all of a sudden her eyelashes started morphing into this iridescent white. And then her hair changed and it was the most beautiful hair I'd ever seen. It was an iridescent, like blonde white, but it wasn't like what you would think of as a blonde, on the surface or something. It was completely different. And she changed. And I knew that that was the way, because again, we were telepathically communicating. And then she opened her mouth and she said, do you think of me any less? Because at that moment, I realized that she was showing herself in her true form. Like what, instead of the more human version, it was, even though I know they're like human, it was the real version of her that probably people would look and say is like, what is that? Like, why, that's not natural or something. And I looked at her and I said, of course not. And then she said, exactly. So why would I ever love you any less? And then she went in to hug me and I completely felt the love yet again, just radiating and that warmth. And I literally felt like her breath on me, like next to like my neck and everything. And I felt it all. And it was the most wild thing and so beautiful. And then after, I literally looked because I knew it was like time to go, if you will. And I said, she said, what I said, oh, I said, will I see you again? Like, can I see you again? And they said, yeah, you'll be seeing us again. And I said, okay. And then she said, but it's time for you to go now. You have to go. And immediately, as she said that, I said, are you sure? And she said something, and I said something funny. I don't remember what it was now, but she laughed. She said, you'll see me again. I said, okay. And I turned around, and immediately as I did that, I literally shot up out of bed. I literally woke up, and that was that. And it was the most real thing that I had never felt love like that ever in my life. And that's like, to me, that was a crazy feeling to realize that, because I have a great mother, for instance, and she loves me so much. I have great friends, I've had great relationships and stuff, and still it doesn't hold a candle to the love that I had felt just in those moments.
Mhm.
And I couldn't believe it. I truly couldn't believe it. And I was just like, I was so addicted to it, I wanted to get it back, and I couldn't get it back. And I was like,
Man,
I
those
was
are
just like,
familiar
how?
words.
Yeah, and I was just like, how am I going to get this back? And I remember saying to my mom, and she's just like, she couldn't even understand. She's like, okay, Sam, like, okay, Samantha. And I was just like, no, you don't understand. Like, there's this comparison thing we felt before. And, I felt it, and I just felt it like dwindling away, like as the day went on. And now it's just like, I know what it felt like, but I don't know what it felt like. Does that make sense? It's like when you're
Yes,
saturated in it, you can feel it, but now it's only the memory of that. Does that make sense?
it does. Look, when you were in touch with that, you were at a higher vibration. Your frequency rose, and while you're there, you can bring those things from just out of your awareness into your physicality. But once we get back into this realm and our vibration can drop back into what's normal around here, as much as we know what we touched, and we'll never forget that sensation, the conditions are going to have to be right again to get you back to that level of frequency.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but you're right.
And
Once you've been there, that's the only place I ever want to be.
yes, I was just like, I want to be with them, And it's not like, and here's the thing, I don't want to, I love her. I actually do. And it's been a hell of a ride for me. It hasn't been like rainbows and unicorns, but I have an infinity for Earth because I have so much I want to do. And that really resonates because on a soul level, I think I just know my mission. You know what I mean? And that drive. And again, this music thing is supposed to be so much bigger, and we're talking like really massive, really massive. And it's not something, you know, it's not as if I may be known to people. It could, in the next 2 years, but this isn't like on the mass level, but this isn't something that's just going to like take form in these teachings, like where it's going to be in 2 years. This is for the long haul of something that really builds itself and is really, really massive. Um, And I know that I have like certain stuff I have to do, but you know, I say this with like, I love Earth and I love people, but I'm like, but I really love them. And I would rather be honestly hanging out with them
Yeah.
because that's where it feels like home is. You know what I mean? Like they feel like they actually like they got me, you know what I mean? They understand and everything. And it sounds like I'm like trying to maybe run probably to certain people and stuff, but it's not that. It's when you start to experience these things, as you know, it becomes a different ball game. It's not me trying to stay in a different world. I can't even like help it sometimes. Sometimes I'm just like thrown out my body, no matter how grounded I am. And because some stuff is the energy is just so strong that it just happens. I mean, even I'm at my family's shore house right now, and I'm at the Jersey Shore, and I'm right on the water. And I mean, the ETs it just keep on visiting me. I mean, I just took a video of it literally during the middle of the day of a rainbow, and a craft was in the video that I didn't originally see, and it was just there, and I was just like, where did that come from? And it was just a craft just like going straight by, like very quickly. But when you slow it down, it's an actual physical craft just zapping by. And I mean, they visit me. I mean, literally all when I say all the time, it means like daily. Do you know what I mean? Right on the water,
Yes.
right in my backyard and stuff. And I haven't gotten the again this I've had the Syrians come through because for one of the codes we're going what we first did was and I can even if you ever wanted to, of course, I could introduce you to some of these people. One of the women, she's absolutely been, just a beautiful soul. She holds the light code of the Earth Star for many. Um, and we went in and we connected ourselves into our Earth Star in a certain way. So right after we were able to do our star origin with the galactics and stuff and the Confederation, and we've really been working with that and like the highest councils, all of them. Um, and the Syrians have been the pillars have been helping us with everything. And because of the work we're doing, because this one, what we're doing is it's considered, and and you've been obviously doing it on an accelerated pace too. We're considered to be doing it on an accelerated speed, like our coming into our light, our rainbow bodies compared to some of the other people who are just coming through it and everything like that. And because of it, the series have come through and literally put certain technologies and stuff like into us for us to use for ourselves and for others. And they put inside behind our belly button for some of us. It's kind of like the sun, but it's like their sun. It's like a piece of their sun that they put behind our stomachs that's able to mobilize throughout our entire body on command for anything that's going on. Later on, they put in our hands, our palms, our feet, and our third eye. Because obviously it goes without saying our pineal glands are already activated. Pyramids that are able to actually scan people and to do, more whatever you want to call supernatural things that I guess other people like to say. But And it's kind of fun getting used to that because this is brand new, the pyramid ones. Because you can feel them, but they have to grow because they start to interconnect throughout your body, all connecting, if you will. But they put the you and you can feel, I mean, literally, it's like crazy. Didn't feel like this before, and I can always like feel energy like with like crystals and stuff, but they put these technologies in and they've been visiting a lot more recently as we progress through, you know, our transmissions and activations, whatever you want to call them and stuff. They're becoming more and more around us more than ever recently, especially since Lionsgate, because Lionsgate was on a different level. Um, but yeah, I forget like why I started going on that tangent, but with excuse me for that, but with all of that, it's uh it's really interesting feeling that love and never having felt it before until like this moment and thinking that I understood. Um, but we're doing so much work, and now they're saying like I'm being told, um, because one of the things I also said without continuously droning on was that I was told that I need to scale back everything through Raphael. Um, that because of what my mission is so 5D and people aren't used to it. I was just like, guys, I don't even like know how do I bring this into the physical? I was just like, I genuinely don't understand like how I as a human am going to be able to do this, like integrate these things and know how to do it. And the only thing I knew that I would even do, the only thing I could even think of prior to them even saying it was probably like one of the sacred sites, like Göbekli Tepe has an etheric city. Um, but I was just like, I would think Telos, Mount Shasta or something. And now they're saying it's time in order for the synthesization of that to happen, you'd now actually have to go there. So I know that I'll get more information on that, like either around like early October, I believe, about more what that entails. But I don't know, like, if I'm supposed to go with somebody, or if I'm supposed to go alone. I'm not really sure yet, but I know it's what I'm supposed to do. And I wanted to obviously, because I've seen you've gone, obviously, because I've come across your stuff, of course, or else I wouldn't be connecting with you. What, that would maybe entail in the sense is like I've heard the general story, but I didn't know if maybe there was like a certain way they carry themselves that I should be aware of, or like a certain etiquette maybe in the way that you held yourself. And yeah, I was just like curious in general um about anything that may be of assistance to me because I'm not a fish out of water, but I'm a fish out of water in the sense is I haven't done this one. I'm like, what am I gonna do? Go into the woods alone? Like, what am I doing? Like what's going on here? So any of your 2 cents or anything is of course welcome.
Um, you have to vibrate at the level that they vibrate at in order to
Right.
experience them astrally, physically, whatever it is. And, I was 2 years into my journey when, wait,
Right.
no, my journey started in 2016 and Telos was in 2020. So I was well aware of connections to higher wisdom that was coming my way that I didn't know how I knew the things I knew. I just knew them, and was starting to blow some people away. I was doing some consulting work at a casino in Baton Rouge, and there were only 2 people out of 450 employees that I could have these conversations with. One was
Yeah.
our director of compliance, and she had brought in a book, trying to remember what it was that she was reading, and it got my attention. And so when I went home, I found it. I'd read a couple passages, and the next day I had answers for her that she had. I don't know where I got it. And when she heard it, she goes, yeah, that makes sense. From that
Yeah,
point on, over the next year, I just got more unsettled where I was. And I just knew that I was supposed to be doing something else. Now I was making six figures working in the casino industry and making bonus. So life was pretty good. I
right.
left all that behind because something else was supposed to displace it. So when I left there, yeah, COVID I left the first part of February in 2020. By the time I was on my way to Las Vegas. I had put money down on a house. I thought I was going to move there and I would consult from there because most of the work I was getting was friends of mine that had been in the industry that were based in Las Vegas anyway. Well, I might as well live there. And I was willing to go where I needed to go. Um, on my way driving back, something just kept nagging me and said, don't close on the house, don't close on the house. And when I got to Alex's place here in California, after 5 days, COVID busted wide open. No one's going anywhere.
Right.
So I guess, that idea that a few days earlier I'd called and just canceled. I lost my deposit. It wasn't a lot of escrow money. It was still $9,000, but it wasn't meant for me. And so then when
Right.
COVID began to relax a little bit, in that interim, while we were all on lockdown, I had more interest in pursuing past lives. And there was one area, Atlantis kept coming across my field constantly, and I wanted to know more about that. Well, I found somebody that could help me with that. And Amira, who lives in Hawaii, helped me. It was only through that connection to Atlantis that I was even aware of the Lemurians. And Telos wasn't on my radar either.
Right.
When it got to be time for me to be able to think about getting out of the house, because things had relaxed a little bit, I just wanted to go find nature again, because that's where I can connect. And I don't like going where everybody else goes. I want to go off track and find what no one else has found before. And if there was a way for me to connect with spirit, I was exploring every avenue there was. In 2018, somehow ayahuasca had come across my wherewithal, and I was really curious about that. Things lined up so that there was a group out of Tucson that would take that little process on the road. They had been to California before, and when I had heard about it, I did all the research I wanted to do on it. But man, if this was a way that I could really touch spirit, I was interested in exploring it. Well, to make a long story short,
Right.
yes, it definitely did. And then I had learned more about my connections in Atlanta. So when I got the decision to go and find space, I was going to head to the Southwest, where there's tons of national parks between Utah, Colorado, New Mexico, and Arizona. I've been there before, loved the place, would be happy to go back. And so that was my plan. And while I was making those um, plans in my head, there were lots of Facebook reports that the parks might not even be open. Okay, well, as soon as that reality hit me, the next thought in my head was Mount Shasta. Now, I'd driven by it a few times and I kind of heard about it, but I didn't know anything about it. It
Right.
was some area I hadn't been before. I was curious to go see what it was. 4 hours or so from where I lived. So to me, yeah, we'll go and check it out. I had left where my son was with the idea that, well, no one was working, so he was out of work too. I was going to go to Shasta for a week, and then we thought, well, maybe we'll meet in Tahoe or Reno a week after that. We'll, spend some time out in nature together. After the I got to Shasta after the first week, um, I just felt like there was more I wanted to explore. And I was hiking every day like I was in my early 20s, and I am not in my early 20s. And yet,
Yeah.
there was just an energy that I couldn't put my finger on and really didn't even think about until the following week. When I called Alex that the end of that week, I said, there's just something here and I want to stay a little bit longer. He goes, "Oh, stay as long as you like." So at the end of the second week, I was up in this space that I loved a lot. And I'd heard an older couple, a couple cars down from where I had parked, and they were remarking on how extraordinary the energy was to them. And that's when it came to me that, holy shit, Lowell, you are hiking like you're in your 20s every day. You should be tired the days in between and recover. And I didn't need any of that. That's when I went, wow, there's something palpable here in the energy, and I wanted to explore it. Had I not had to be back in Santa Rosa the first part of August, I would have stayed longer, but I was there 5 weeks before I left. And every day
Wow.
found something else. It was the last weekend that I was there that Telos opened up the doors. And the only thing I knew about Telos is I'd seen it on the cover of a book while I was in town. I knew about the Lemurians. My
Oh,
interest
really?
was that I had heard the stories, and Saint Germain is no legend. He came out of the mountain and gave all the information he gave to Guy Ballard back in the 1930s,
Right.
and how many books he wrote about it, and how much he and his wife traveled around talking about it. It caught on. So that was my only reference to Lemurians and Telos. I went out hoping when I would go off trail, it's me. It's just me out here. So if there's a spirit that exists and that there's ascended masters I can encounter and exchange with, that's what I'm looking for. Never did I think that the mountain was going to open up and invite me in to see Telos. That all happened because I vibrated at the right level, that all of the
Right.
things that led me up to that point, rose my consciousness, awoken it enough that I was ready to see what they wanted to show me. It wouldn't be until much later that I would learn that the reason I was allowed in is because I was one of them. I
Right.
had
Yeah.
incarnated on this side to assist with this transition so that when the time came to assimilate back with the surface, I'm already here on this side. So when they asked me if I'd be willing to be an emissary, I thought that that was a special human thing. I didn't put all that together until later. No, 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 Lowell, you came into this incarnation knowing that that's what you were going to do. And you were going to
Right.
prepare on this side for that. So when I visited and came out, there were two things that, they wanted evident. They wanted people to know, first of all, that they were there. They were there, and they wanted people to
Yeah.
know that. And
I
so
think like I'm sorry to mean
it
to
was
cut you
only
off.
going to be
Go ahead.
a matter of time before others were going to be invited in. There wasn't anything in my wherewithal that told me I was only going to be the only one that was ever going to experience that. I knew that what I was to do was to tell others about my experience. And that wasn't that easy because I didn't really understand it that well. It would be a couple years before I really could put that into perspective. And it wasn't that Telos opened up and invited me in. Here, Lowell, is what Toth and everyone else is trying to explain to us poor little humans, that we needed to understand multidimensionality. It's a thing.
Right.
And
Oh yeah.
Telos was just one example. It was going to be my first example, but it wasn't going to be the last. Because a year after that, when I returned, I was going to be introduced to a hybrid, and she was
Hybrid.
placed in my path. Yes, this is a person who's half human and half with light person, light being, if you want to see it that way.
Okay.
Um, I didn't know her until I met her the first part of August that year. And I was going to have interactions with light beings. The first day
Right.
she came by and we got used to one another, she asked me to come over and stand by a plant on this deck that I was at.
Okay.
And she gave me these eliomes to, chant. And I didn't know what it was. So, for like a minute, I said the things she told me to say until I felt silly. And I turned around, to kind of end it. And by that time, she was done doing whatever she was doing. We moved into the house to get out of the sun. And she started to show me on her camera the picture that she's taken. She had taken a series of pictures of the plant before she asked me to come over. And there were clearly light beings that she had called in, lots of them.
Right.
Then when I, stepped up, this light being came in my third eye and out my back. And the second image was I could feel, and I would understand they were downloads later. There was another picture of light that was hitting this part of my neck. And ever since, here has been the place where I feel when I get downloads. It's the same place all the time.
Mm.
It's like it's not a sound; it's like a frequency. I can't describe what it is, but I know when it kicks in, I'm getting more information.
No, that makes perfect
Later,
sense.
I would see her, and actually, she came back the next day. Now, she had no business coming back the next day, but she did. Later I would come to understand that whatever that first interaction that was between me and these light beings, that
Right.
I must have met some condition because she was back the next day and she was going to photograph some other phenomenon with me and these light beings. And then 2 weeks later, when we were going to find ourselves overlapping time, we were going to be in Shasta together. I was going to be engaging with these light beings one more time and have physical interactions with them. Oh yeah, they left
Okay.
something else behind me. And again, this wasn't, and the pictures were taken so that, Lowell, the day that you get to tell your story, it won't be just you're telling your story like others. You're going to have pictures to show people of these phenomena. And when that last instance, we were in the Shasta area, but away from it a bit, in an area a little bit north on some land that was a Veterans Memorial Park in a sculpture garden. She'd been there before and she'd done some
Okay.
ceremonies, not the ceremony that I was going to go through, but she had been there before. And it was the middle of the afternoon, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And here I was interacting as I was, laid out in this space. Um, I had a sense of something I wanted to know. And there had been a relationship building up between me and Toth that I had been told
Okay.
about, one that I was aware of, but the idea that I understood he was returning. And I thought the way she characterized it is that they were looking for a vessel um, that was pure enough to hold his consciousness. I thought,
Understood.
well, is that me? I couldn't wrap my head around that. Well, I know that it that's not my relationship with him. Oh, Toth and I, we ride shotgun together. Um, but I understand what my relationship with him was. And now that I understand more about my past lives and who I was, Toth and I had been together on other things in Lemuria and in
Right.
Atlantis. So I understood who I was and what access I had to the things that, Toth had access to. Am I him? No, not supposed to be him, but I can carry his higher aspects and all the wisdom that he carried. Yes, I have a command of all of that. Um, that was my second multi-dimensional experience. Then this past year, I went back and had some others around Fairy Falls in those areas, and now it's like second nature. But had I not had those other experiences, I would have just thought that, Telos was this cool thing I went through and, I really didn't understand it. No, no, no. There was a reason to all this and it's all leading up to somebody else. And once you really figure out who you are, Lowell, now you'll understand what your purpose is and what you're doing here. No, you're
Right.
right. You weren't going to be the only one. Um, and in fact, that day when pictures were taken, she said, I want you to give me your phone. And that way they'll always be in your cloud. And no one will ever be able to say that I took those pictures with my camera and I sent them to you and somehow they got altered along the way. It'll never be like that. It's just crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the pictures, I was amazed at first. I mean, I could feel what was going on around me and I could hear it. When I saw
Okay.
the pictures of it later, the first parts of the pictures where you saw these light beings and the refraction from the lights through their bodies when you saw that, that was a cool thing. The last series of photographs, there was something like green over where I was. And when I started to look through, the pictures, because she'd taken a sequence, you could finally figure out this was a ship that was spinning over me.
Oh, okay.
Crazy. Yeah. So when it's
Yeah.
photographed like that, you know that this wasn't just crap and there was reasons why all this was being done. When she took the first photos and showed them to me the first day, she goes, those are for your portfolio. And I went, what the hell does that mean? Well, one day you'll tell your story and you're going to have some pictures to back up your experience. And
Right.
on we go. Um, since then, what's been brought to my attention really in the last several months is that Telos isn't the only city in Inner Earth. No,
Right.
there's like 120 of them. 9 of them I'm fully aware of. And I have this conception of where they are and what they are and who they are. Some of them are Lemurian colonies. Some of them are Atlantean colonies. It's not that, those civilizations went by the wayside. Lots of that survived along the way. And just because when the earth melted down, it happened to be on the Atlanteans' watch, not every Atlantean was full of dark energy. No, no, there's a
Yeah, of
whole
course.
sequence of them that were here that are still here. And in the same way, the Lemurians have withdrawn so that they're not affected by all the negativity on the surface. They're waiting
Right.
until that dissipates so that they can reintegrate with the surface and for us to go there. As I'm seeing all this meltdown around us and understanding that whatever this last solar flash that's going to come our way, that's going to trigger the final stage of consciousness, it's right
Right.
around the corner. And just like when the Lemurians went into Inner Earth and the Atlanteans did, there are going to be options for us to do the same thing when this catastrophe is left
When that time
behind in some
comes.
areas on the surface. There are going to be opportunities for us to move into these spaces as well. And so, part of my job is to bring awareness to that whole notion that Inner Earth is a thing and they're just waiting for us as well.
Yeah, that's like it's interesting you say that because even the other day, because I of course wasn't again, you were the only person just about aside from, the my leader, if you will, that knows about the music thing and this like mission and everything. And you know, it was odd or not odd to me, but it's really expected. But there's like a person I know that like, very good like psychic, if you will, medium, whatever. I was talking to her the other day and I wasn't telling her about this mission that I know that I have. And I said something, I was just like, oh yeah, like think about going about chess and everything, saying passing and kind of like mentioned like Telos, but not, about this stuff or anything. And she's very good. And she was just like, well, you don't go there like in the physical, like, my guides are only showing me like it's like astral and stuff. And I was just like, I mean, I don't know if that's necessarily true. And she was just like, no, like uh, that's really the way that I'm showed it. And it was just interesting because there's like even some of the most like talented people I know still like I think on some level don't have a full understanding that, it is a vibration and it is real, because
Yes.
uh, and like it is physical and like, this for you wasn't astral. This was actually
No,
physical. Yeah.
my boots are
And
on the ground.
right. And yeah, I guess like I do have like questions around that. Like when you were there and like the did a threshold open up when the male Alex took you through? Like was there did you like just like walk through something that was like holographic that looked like rock or something? Um,
I was sitting when I found this spot eventually. Uh, I had found this, it was almost like a perch. There were
okay,
these three boulders that had come out from actually a part of the mountain. And so when I went in, I thought this is really cool. So I kind of sat down. I could see off in the distance. I could see the parking lot where I came from. But people that were there to hike didn't come in this direction. They didn't
okay,
go this way along Shastina. They went up Old Ski Bowl Trail or off, in the opposite direction. And so really no one knew where I was going. I was off trail anyway. Um, but I found these energetic spots, and you could feel the sensation there. And when I got into this little pod, I sat down. So it had some water, had some grapes. I was listening to music. My phone was in my back pocket, and I had leaned up against the mountain. The only thing between me and the rock and the mountain was, the dry brush that was there. Well, after I had finished my refreshment and put that stuff away, all of a sudden the music stopped. Made no sense because my phone was fully charged when I left my vehicle 40 minutes ago, and I had a Multi around it, so power shouldn't be an issue. So when I leaned
right.
forward to pull my phone out and I was looking at it, I there was no power. So when I started to try and power it up again, I felt a breeze from behind me. When I turned around, there was a hole in the wall of this rock where I had been leaning up a moment ago. And so I stood up, turned around to take a look at it, and you could tell that there was a little bit of a rise that went up. And then I didn't understand what I was seeing. Later, it would make sense that this is a lava tube. Of course, the place is full of them, but when the light could adjust, and I thought I saw somebody down there on the left hand side. Well, when that thought came into my mind, that's when Alex said, "Would you like to see Telos?" It would be later when we got closer to the bottom of this incline into where he was taking me. When I turned around to see where we came from, there was no light behind me anymore. Later, it would make
Okay.
sense to me that that was a portal that had been opened up.
Understood. Okay. Um, and just because I'm just curious honestly about this and just want to pick your brain about it. When you walked down and did you get on like any like craft or something for transportation to take you to the city?
Yeah, when
Yeah.
we got down to the bottom of this, yeah, as we were going down this incline, I could see light coming from the other space. And when we got down to the bottom, and it was well lit, it was like a pretty good sized staging area. Off in front of me over there were like five more of these tubes that we had come out of. But as we stood there, I looked immediately to my left, and there was this platform, like 6 by 6 or so. It looked like it had two like bucket seats on it, or no console or anything like that. Off down to the left a little bit further, there was another one, and off to my right, there was another one over there. Well, while I had taken all this in, Alex had moved over to the other side and had sat down on the opposite side of this platform and invited me to sit next to him. And the moment I did, when my butt hit the seat, this thing started to levitate and off we went.
Right. Yeah, I had been just because I I seen on your channel or something, or on Instagram something, because I just started listening YouTube. I just started listening to it just the other day, funny enough, because I honestly didn't expect to even be speaking to you today. It's really funny how everything kind of just fell into place. Because there's a lot
Shit's
funny, like,
accelerating.
yeah, it's really funny the reason, like, why, like, behind it, because I didn't even tell you that because I didn't think it was necessarily like pertinent information, just more like what somebody would like to call coincidence, we know is not coincidence, and how I ended up talking to you today. And I was listening to, and I didn't get through it yet. I've been listening to it. Maybe I'll finish it today, later on. The recording of, I don't know if I'm saying the name right, Sharula,
Chirula ducks.
there we go. I just started listening to that. I got to the point of like them talking about the transportation, the baskets. I That's right where I've like left off, like them talking about that, and I think the animals.
So
Which
cool.
yeah, did you? Because I also seen in the description, so I was like curious because I only just seen it today. Like more of it. Just because I was like looking around on your website and everything. Um, I seen
Yeah,
that you had uh
not too long after my experience in at the end of July in Telos, when we got to like October and kind of the word got out, there's a guy in Shasta who's been there for a while, and he's kind of connected into all this stuff. He's done some conferences up there for a long time. His name's Rob Potter, and Rob, after we had met and we were getting to know one another, I had done an interview with him. I think it was the second one I ever did, and that's when he asked me if I knew about Chiruba ducks. I hadn't heard about her. And when he told me
right.
that she was the last Lemurian that anybody knows of that had actually lived on the surface, and that it had been somewhere between in the 90s and the early 2000s, she had actually been here, and her job was just, raise awareness. He had pointed me to a YouTube channel that had taken the interview that you saw that had been done and recorded. It's like 2 hours long. Somebody had taken it and chopped it up into 12 10-minute sections so that it was more palatable. So when I listened to it at first, I didn't really know enough about what I didn't know. Um, and so I wasn't that invested in the information. As time went on, and of course, I'm hungry like everybody else to hear the next thing about Tellus and Lemuria. And when I actually understood that that was recorded by a woman named Diane Robbins, who's written, 4 or 5 books on Inner
Yeah,
Earth
no,
and Telos.
yeah,
I got to be pretty good friends with Diane as a result of it. And somewhere there, when she had told me that she had done that tape, that's when it triggered me again. And I went, wait, if she's the last Lemurian that has lived on the surface, I definitely want to hear what she had to say. So when I went to listen to it again, it made much more sense to me this time. And my experience started to line up with some of the things that she was talking about. Oh, there's something more to this. So that's when I had reached out to Diane and I said, I'd like to take that and remaster it into, the 2 hours that it had originally been. And then, I'll just take some of my images and I'll put them in there and we'll create this into a video, and it'll always be there for somebody else that wants to hear the last person who's been here. No one has heard from Sharula since 2005 or '07 or so, so we assume that she went back. But even when this was
right.
done, she's like 268 years old.
Yeah, well, I know that they're not aging like us by any means.
No,
They
no.
age if they want to,
They're
right? They age if
crystal,
they want.
their forms are
Yeah,
crystalline already there. That's why they look
yeah,
flawless.
yeah. I because like in like my teachings and stuff that I've gotten, Raphael, as I've been speaking about, has even like gone through, because we did one of the things we've done and been integrating of like the point of the rainbow body obviously is being crystalline, fully, integrated into that body. Actually had talked about being like, for men, some of you with your your soul contract, some of you will choose to leave this earth at a certain time, but some of you are going to choose to stay here for a very long time.
Yeah.
because you're gonna reintegrate back into the remembrance of not aging. Because you'll have everything reinstalled back into you. So ultimately, it's a choice of when you really do want to leave, opposed to the human disease we've created through lower vibrations of what we would call death. Um,
Yes.
yeah, so I understand that they don't age or anything like that. I'm very, very well aware. But yes, I just started listening to, that, and you talk about her. And I seen only today when I said checking out your website, because I was looking at how to contact you. I didn't know like if it was gonna, I didn't plan to message you through Instagram or something. I thought maybe you wanted a more professional way to do it.
Didn't
Um,
matter.
yeah, but I seen that because I was just curious about this. I seen you were talking to through Diane, um, a woman named Marie that is Adama's daughter. And I was just curious
Yeah,
about that.
I, I I know who she is. I was trying to, I actually, when Diane had told me that Maria had stopped by to see her, it was about 2 weeks before I was going to return to Shasta. This is great. If there's another Lemurian on the surface, I definitely want to meet. Um,
Right.
it didn't work out. She she must be from, I don't know if she's from South America or Central America. She has kind of an Hispanic um, um, sound. And uh, but I've got some questions, and what I couldn't really discern is that she referred to herself as Sharula's sister. Well, Sharula,
Right. That's what
when
I
you
seen.
listen to her, explains that she is the daughter of Ra and Ra and Amu, the king and queen, which makes her princess. Maria um, claims that she was Adama's daughter. So you see where the disconnect
Right.
is? I'm not quite sure
Yeah.
unless, we're all brothers and sisters and tell us if you look at it from that standpoint, then yes, she'd be Sharula's sister. But I really wanted to ask her that question, face to face to see if I couldn't understand more. One, I want to discern whether somebody's just yanking my chain and yanking
Right.
Diane's chain, and I don't want to go
Sure.
there, but um, Diane's pretty savvy about such things. And I don't know that she would have let any wool be pulled over her eyes. Um, who's to say? I didn't get a
Yeah,
chance
especially
to meet
because
with
she's so
Maria when
known.
I was there. So I don't really know the end to that, but I'm convinced that there are more of us on the surface. There's, according to the last information I was given, and that was last summer, there are 4.8 million Lemurians on the planet today.
Like on surface, or you mean
I assume it's
between both?
both. I
I would
assume
think
it's
both.
both. Yes.
Yeah, because I would think that they're doing their work going unseen. And
Yes.
um yeah, I remember there's a woman, she actually just wrote, her name's Kim Barter. She just wrote a book based off of I think it's the third volume of the I Am Discourses, called Now I Am. It just came out. I went to the book release the other day because she's a dear friend of mine. And her and I don't know if you know like the New Jersey area well or anything, but there's a place called Cape May, Jersey Shore area, and it's very beautiful. It's very old time Victorian, and there's something about the energy there. I mean, it's got that thing, if you will. And her and I went. It was the first time we had ever met, and we went and we had lunch at this old Victorian hotel, and it was just really beautiful. It's like on this right on the beach, you could see it, and we were on this beautiful deck, and again, just the beautiful wood, old, architecturally and everything, just gorgeous. And it was just her and I. And I mean, people, like the people that were around, to pass by and stuff, it was so funny because they just started like staring at us. Like, I mean, like they wouldn't leave. And at one point, like even like the waiter was coming up to us and he just like staying for like long periods of time. And I just kind of was just like, because she's like another person that holds a code. She holds the IM code. So it's very fitting that she wrote this book. And we were just, she was like laughing about it because she was just like, I know. She was just like, this one's a little crazy. She was like, people are just staring at us like as if we look like aliens ourselves. And
You emit a light that you don't really understand and see because it's just who we are. And even in
yeah,
the others that we resonate with, we recognize it in them, but we're so connected to them that we don't look beyond what others see that don't vibrate at this level. But there's something that just they're drawn to and they can't stop looking. Some of them will
yeah,
be bold enough to ask, and then those that you were supposed to trigger, oh, they'll show up too.
yeah, for sure. And it was very interesting to say the least, without getting into detail, all the weird synchronicities and things that was going on, the people just staring at us. And it was interesting because as we were walking down the stairs, I mean the energy was literally like crackling. You could feel the hair like coming up your neck and stuff. And I had like tripped and I fell, but I kind of knew that was gonna happen. Didn't want it to happen, but I just knew. And because I even said to my friend, watch your step. And of course I was the one that tripped, which is funny because I'm not even clumsy. And this woman comes over, and again she's like in her 20s and she has this beautiful long just like wavy blonde hair and crystal blue eyes, and she was very tall, and she, when I tell you, showed up out of nowhere. I mean, she legitimately showed up out of nowhere. And I was like, so like the energy was so like static to begin with, it's just like so just high energy that like when I looked up I was just like on the ground, and I just was just like trying to get up, and this woman comes right over the balcony, nowhere in sight beforehand, comes right over and goes, "Are you okay?" Like with this like very like angelic, like celestial, even like tone of voice. And I was just like, and like I had literally was like foggy in the head almost. And I was just like, yeah, I'm okay. And it took me a second. And then I realized because she's like, "Are you sure? Because I can come and help you." And she kept on insisting on it. And I was just like, there was nothing to do. I just need to like get up. You know what I mean? I mean, I was hurt. I was a little banged up, but I could get up. And she was just like, I can help you. And I was just like, and I was honestly embarrassed, like at this point, because I'm not used to falling in front of people. And not that it should be embarrassing, but I just remember looking at her, and my friend Kim, the one that wrote Now I Am, she's just looking at this entire interaction. She's just like, that, you do realize that that was like a being, right? Like that was a being in human form. I was just like, oh, it didn't even, like I registered it, but I registered it so late because the energy was so big, with everything going on that I didn't even, as it was happening, register that I could have like had this person come and like assist me. Because obviously you have to say yes, it's your free will, to like let them in and everything. But at that moment, I didn't even, know what to do. So it was a very like funny moment, like dealing with that. Because, I definitely have my weird, I mean, I have weird moments all the time. I mean, let's face it, like we're probably all like having like these like
Well,
things go on.
they're extraordinary.
Yes.
our 3D wants to label it as weird. It's extraordinary stuff that we're supposed to be getting used to.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Just like I said, I've noticed a real uptick in the energy and everything that's like going on, and it's especially the past few months. Um, Even recently, this past month has been like a lot. But yeah, I was just like very curious and like like with you going into these, or like going into Telus and everything, like just like the physical, experience, just because that's something that I know that I will be experiencing,
Yes, you will.
probably some very soon.
Yeah, when you gave me just that little snippet on your message this morning, um, like I said before, when I can engage with somebody that I sense has Lemurian roots, I want to understand, who they are. They showed up. Um, we're all gathering um, and getting ready. I was told last year when I heard how many of us there were that they intend to make greater contact with people on the surface. Not going to be a
Right.
secret anymore. No. And these energetic portals are popping up now more and more in Shasta. Every time I go back, I see more of these areas that are being lit up. And that's intentional. When the time
Yeah.
comes for people to find those spaces, they're not meant to be secret. They're meant to be there for everyone to benefit from.
Right. Yeah. And because again, I just like, I thought that I was, not that I didn't think that I was crazy by any means, but I've had so many people say, Samantha, like, you don't go there in the physical. Like, actually, sure. I have all these like people that, can like tap in on some level and everything, or like have heard of it. And they're like, it's not like that. I'm like, I just don't like, what, that's not how I'm being told through my own soul, if you will, not even outsiders, but through my own soul, literally. And like the experiences I have that I'm like, there has to be something more to it, obviously, everything that I'm taught and I'm doing like day to day to day. And it just feels like it's the energy is only becoming more and more, you know, strong like with this stuff. And I was like, who do I even talk to that's like kind of had this experience? Because I don't know of any other person that's like legitimate at least that has had your experience. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
I
I
was
don't
like, who,
either. Not yet.
yeah. And I was just like, who do I speak to? And I knew like on some level that I needed to speak to somebody. And today I was going to um like I said, I was going to actually speak to Raphael today, like a one-on-one thing. But the energies are just so exhausting right now. And for like my leader, she because we're going into Merlin's vibrational magic. Like we're really going to be working on advanced teachings of that in the next like 2 weeks. We actually need a break from it because the influx of energy has been so much. And she was just like,
You got
I
to let it
physically,
assimilate.
yeah. And she was like, I physically, because we were just doing a bunch of stuff with light language, and which was very interesting in and of itself because Raphael and the big councils were coming through, and everybody you could think of, from like the Arcturians to Andromeda to Lyrian, and then to even like higher councils. I mean, ones that don't have names, literally ones
Hmm.
that don't have names, like the highest of the high councils were coming through, and they were explaining how there's 12 dialects of light language alone, meaning like the sounds of it and everything. Like some sound like warriors, like some sound more celestial, some sound more like having more musicality kind of essence like to it and stuff. And we really did that, and it was a lot of, I mean, the energy with that was just so much, and I've been experiencing light language. I mean, that's like the thing that like woke me up, if you will. I didn't even know what it was, but we were doing on a very more high intense level, if you will. And between doing that and Lionsgate, it's just been crazy town. And she was just like, I can't even, she was just like, in order for me to hold for thousands, because even the people that may not know about it yet, or like us yet, like what we hold for like the masses of like our pod, if you will, she's still holding that for people, you know what I mean, as like a leader. And she's just like, in order for me to hold it, I kind of need like 2 weeks in order to, it's like I'm just too burnt out, and the energy's been too much. And I would agree because I've had to like cut a lot of cords, and everything recently, and everything with like old energies and all that stuff. And I was just like, if I was supposed to do it today, I was supposed to talk about, because I was going to ask more kind of about like, well, I needed more information. And I was just like, I just like got, when you get that weird spirit impulse, like you just get it. And I just like manically was just like, I know that this man has gone here. I've listened to your stuff and everything. And I know that it's real, just through your word, because you're obviously not pulling anybody's chain. Your story doesn't change. It never has,
No,
like from everything I've
there's
heard.
no
And
point for me to make any of this. What would be the
yeah,
point of me to make all this
exactly.
up?
To make yourself look
Look,
crazy.
at my age, I should be just retired and traveling. That is not
Yeah.
where I ended up. And
Yeah.
there's something that's tugging at me on the inside for me to understand it better. And I don't question anymore. I don't stop to try and convince anybody of what I went through. I can't unsee what I saw. I can't unexperience what I experienced. And so those people that I'm delighted to hear that most of the people that have heard me, I haven't had anybody call me crazy or that that wasn't possible. But I believe that only the people that were drawn to this kind of content were the ones that came my way. But once they listen to me once, you're either going to determine for yourself whether what you hear from me is authentic or it's not. And that's the bottom line. Does it raise your vibration? Does it drop your vibration? If you use that as your barometer, your discernment is going to tell you whether this resonates with you or not. If it doesn't, bless your heart. I send you with love and light. But I'm not here to convince anybody. I'm here to help people like Sam, who had a trigger and wants to understand that better from somebody who's been there. Not that Sam's trip now is going to mirror mine. I always thought for the longest time that others would find their way to tell us the way I found it. And now I've concluded no one's probably going to find their way that way. Not to say that they won't find their way there. I'm convinced that they will. It just won't be the way that I went.
Right. Yeah, because that's your own journey, and it was meant to.
Yes.
It can't be somebody else's. It cannot be that. Um,
You know, think of all the things that line up to where you are today and all the little mini miracles that had to appear and line up in order for you to be in this place today. That is not, no one else is on that journey. No one else can do that.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because like I said, I was just like, I know it's something I'm supposed to do. I've been told I'm going to do it because that's the way of for me to do, like as I've like said a few times, for me in order to do what I need to do, I need to go there in the physical and learn and like and I wouldn't be surprised if I was going to be there for a more extended period of time than just like, an hour or something. Like this is something to integrate and everything and be taught from what I understand, if you will. Um for the frequencies and like to bring in a in a way that I can bring through new notes for humans to hear,
Yeah.
which will be really interesting because I don't know how that's going to.
Well, there's spectrums of light and sound that are new to me, that are around me all the time that others can't pick up on. We're all getting used to those different octaves along the way. But when you reached out to me and indicated that you were going to make a physical trip to tell us, I'm invested into that for you. I
Yeah.
want to see everyone else that's going to go there. I know I'm not going to be the only one. And so it's just more validation that this whole timeline is on an acceleration because here are other people that are showing up.
Yeah. And like I said, I couldn't have guessed I was going to speak to you today. It was such a strange thing that I got like immediately, I was just like, I need to speak to this person. I need to speak to them now. And that is that. Like, that's what has to happen. And, so I did. And I didn't know if you were even going to be like, this person may be a little crazy and like off the wall, like from the things that I was like messaging you and stuff. I was just like, you just have to do it. That's what you have to do. And that's like what I was told to do. So I did it.
I've
Um,
experienced too many extraordinary things to think that what people tell me is crazy or unbelievable because I reflect upon the things that have happened to me and pictures that have been taken of it. It's extraordinary. So who am I to question what happened to somebody else? I know their journey is different than mine. If they don't sound authentic to me, then I'm done listening to it. But
right.
more and more they are.
Right. Yeah. And um and again, there's so much like I obviously can share that like I didn't know like where to to start if you ever like were interested in talking like a different time because there's definitely like a lot of information I can actually offer. I really can. And like, show you some of the things so you can see kind of like where I've, you know, more of my background and like where I've come from, and I can even show you if you wanted, just not that I would show other people, but some of the music, the
Well,
orchestral music.
we
Um,
should do that, Sam. And I don't, this is just a place to begin. I
yeah,
believe that you're supposed to share more of this. So this won't be the last time that we do this. At least it wouldn't be the last time I would recommend that we do this. Others need to hear this as well. And others are waiting to hear from people like you.
yeah, I would love it because even my leader today was talking about how she would really love for, because again, Raphael was like saying like it's time for many more people to start knowing about this pod, to grow it, because we're all part of the same pod. So the people that need to hear it will hear it, but there needs to be a certain pod number because it will exponentially, change everything because of the webs that we are creating, because we're just gridding. I
Yeah.
mean, we just recently did during March, and it was, wow, this one, when I tell you, well, that this was one of the craziest things that I had experienced myself. We did a code, and it's a part of it called Ascension Timeline. And that was very, I mean, when I tell you the air was crackling constantly, and the things that were being shown, and we did a lot of stuff in the etheric city of Göbekli Tepe, astrally, and we got taken through these beautiful because you can feel it, obviously, the more psychically open you are through your actual physical body when it's happening to you astrally, of course, because it is happening to your physical body. Um, I remember they took us many times through like I don't know what to call it, but I don't want to like machines, literally machines, that had to do with like actually healing and stuff, not just like, not just going into like the Crystal Jade Temple, like Telos or something. We're talking like actual machinery and stuff, that Göbekli Tepe holds and stuff that helps shed from old, lifetimes and everything, old vibrations in the one, and in this lifetime. And, I remember them saying, we're not actually interested in your story, like the life that you lived. And it's not like in a mean way, they were saying. If they're like, we don't need the details. What we want is we want the vibration that you're holding around something
Yes.
that's stopping you from moving forward. That's what we want to know. And they brought through at the end energy and of, what was it? It was oh my God, what are they called? I'm gonna blank. I'll have to tell you a different time because
Okay.
it was really phenomenal. But I remember the one day though, on like just like a funny little thing you would probably like, was they said when we first started, they were like, we're gonna come to you. And they even said, they're like, we can be funny, we can like mess with you, we like to make jokes. They said, give us anything today, give us anything, because we want you to know that can happen on the drop of the dime, just like that. Give us the most craziest thing that you can think of today that would be your sign for the highest timeline you want to be on. Like, what would it be symbolically? What would that be? And it was funny. I got in the car and they said, we're going to give it to you the entire day. The entire day, we're going to mess with you, but give us the one sign that you need. And I just came through, like, something triggered in me. I said, you know what? I want to see a Pink Panther. And don't tell me why, but I was like, I want a Pink Panther. Because where am I going to see that? I'm not watching the movie. It's not lying around. I don't have to, it's just a random thing. It really is, like in the grand scheme of things. It's not like show me a water bottle, like, or somebody wearing Calvin Klein. It's like show me a Pink Panther. Where are you going to come across that? And they got in the car, and the symbolism just started going off the charts immediately. And it was funny because I had my music playlist on. It was hand tailored to me, and I have it on, and the next thing I know, my car just starts playing a song that I had never heard before, but there was no way of my music playlist changing, if you will. There was no way of it changing. It was only these songs. Started playing a brand new song. It's called, and I'm listening to it. I'm like, wow, this is a bop. Where's this coming from? And I'm getting really into it. And I'm like, I like this. And I look at before we even hit the chorus, I look at what the name of the song is, and it's called Loud Magic. And the next thing you know, like the chorus hits, and it's just absolutely fire. I'm like, oh, okay, so now they're really playing with me. And I get told like telepathically, go to IKEA. I didn't have a reason to go to IKEA at all. I was like, IKEA. It's like, why am I going to go to IKEA? So I drive to IKEA, and it was like near my area. It was in the area, so it's like I can do that. I can go to IKEA. I hadn't been in there for more than 2 minutes. I mean, I went up the stairs because that's how you obviously go through it. If you're familiar with IKEA, you go through the upstairs
Hmm.
and you work your way down. I walk into the second, I walk past the second like living space, if you will, for a living room like idea. There was a huge friggin' picture of a literal Pink Panther. And I'm just like, of course. And I was just like, where did that? And I, like, you can't even. And the best part is like, I like said to the IKEA people, I said, do you guys like have that um in store? Like, can I buy like that piece? Because I'm thinking, you know what? I said it. I might as well buy it. And they said, no, we actually don't. That's not even supposed to be there. That's actually, we don't even know why that's there. We didn't even like realize it because that's a very old product. It's no, you can't get it or attain it anywhere. And they had just redone the entire upstairs. So that's the best part. It made no sense of how that was there. And everybody was so unfamiliar, even the staff, that they didn't even have answers. And I was just like, of course, like, of course. And I just remember seeing that. I was just like, okay, you got me. Like, you got me good. And I know like a lot of people would say, Sam, you're just being, you're just looking for things. But you can't, there comes a point where you can't keep on throwing them under the rug, you know?
No. Look,
Yeah,
if you want to, I put it this way: stop asking to see miracles, and then when they show up, you say, "No, it can't be,"
exactly.
because you've just cut yourself off from whatever that energy was trying to show you, and the universe is just going to return what intent you put out, and it'll send it to you in abundance. So if you put out there that that's never going to happen, then you're right. You're right. It's never going to happen. It never was. If you tell yourself that it's possible, then watch the next thing and then it's going to show you. Because, like we talked about before, it's readying us at a fundamental level to integrate with things that are higher dimensionally than we are. It's trying to get us used to that before it opens the floodgates on what it really needs to show us in preparation for the change coming.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and like and even now like my third eye is open so much, that like I've seen portals, that just like show up. I'll
Yes.
see beings like come through like in certain forms and everything. And I'm seeing it, but other people aren't. And this it's it's as if you were sitting right up there's no it looks etheric. You know what I mean? It's like as real as,
Yes.
this
Yeah.
sweatshirt I'm wearing, and people can't understand that. So I could literally have a portal right next to somebody and I'm like looking at it, and I technically could probably go through it if I wanted to because I'm the one looking at it. And other people, they can't even, if I
They
told
don't
them I would
vibrate
see,
at the same
yeah,
level. They don't sense things that are around us all the time that we do.
yeah, yeah. And it's as I said, for me, the energy's just been picking up more and more and more. And there's so many questions I could ask you, and I don't want to continuously take your time. I because I would love to,
Well, let's.
pick your brain more.
We've been on a couple hours, so we'll stop here in a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
But we'll pick this up again. I, I let let this assimilate a little bit. I'll throw it up on YouTube in a couple hours. I just need to download the Zoom file and then upload it there where you can take a look at it. And then you can have a look at it. But I think there's more that you need to help others understand. This whole idea last year when the Lemurians back then, well, it wasn't last year, it was while I was in Berlin a couple of months ago. They had said they were going to reach out and make greater contact, and that it's time for all of humanity to understand their vibration.
Right. Right. Yeah. And I understand that. I just, as I said to you, for me at the moment, because I've been doing so much inner work, obviously, to even have gotten to this point, to even be speaking to you, for me, because obviously it's not everybody's journey to probably, go into, for instance, like Telos or something. It's not something they can understand. And for me, I guess like I'm just, and like you said, we can pick it up at a different time and stuff. I'm just trying to fully understand, I understand it's in the physical, if you will, but maybe just like more of that and everything to get. I'm used to the idea if it makes sense, but as talking to somebody like you that's experienced it makes it even more real in the sense of having that direct contact opposed to just like listening to it from an out, listening to like somebody else having this like conversation, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Any last question you want to ask before we part today?
no, I'll save it for the next time because if not,
Okay.
I'll just
Yeah,
keep
that'll open
on.
up another can of worms and we'll
Yeah,
get
and I
into the
don't want to
rabbit
do that to
hole
you.
case.
Definitely do not want to be doing that to you.
We'll do it another day then.
Yeah.
All right, Sam. Well, thanks for reaching out. This is a pleasure for me too.
Oh yeah, no, it's been an absolute pleasure and you've been so lovely and thank you for speaking to me.
Of
Truly.
course. All right.
Yeah,
Well,
and
in,
I no, go ahead for whatever you're gonna say.
no, no, go ahead. You finish your
No,
thought
I
because
just
I was just going to say enjoy your day.
oh yeah. I was just maybe I'll finish the rest of that recording of Sharula or I still don't think I'm saying that right. But yeah,
Shula
and I
ducks.
will yeah, and I'll email you and stuff, and I'll even email you one of the orchestral things that
Good.
uh yeah let you hear because I haven't shown it to other people and stuff, and this isn't something that I is probably for any future stuff or anything, but definitely just getting like my feet wet again with being in love with music and stuff again. So
Good. Good. You weren't given that gift for no reason. That's right.
yeah, definitely I can say that with knowing what I know now, like what I have to do, like what I'm going to do.
Good. All right, pal. I'm going to
All right.
sign off. Have a
Yep.
good day. Thank you so much. Okay.
Yep. Thank you, and I'm
All
sending
right.
you all my love.
Thanks. Have a good day, babe.